Hey guys, it's M4J here and welcome back to the second episode of the Somerset Hills Railway / the Somerset line here on Train Simulator. Once again, this is a time-lapse from a stream that took place 2 weeks ago, I think it was, maybe even 3 weeks ago, thinking. And we get a fair amount done here. We add some more scenery to the line. I do spend quite a lot of this actually wrestling with the scenario editor, trying to get a scenario made. There were a couple of issues with the scenario editor, one of which was my lack of experience with the scenario editor. So in the stream itself, I was talking a lot about, basically saying things like, why isn't this working, getting really irate about it, and then finding out that it's because I was on a completely different setting to what I thought I was on, and, therefore entirely my fault. It wasn't working correctly. In terms of the line itself, it is starting to take shape, and it's starting to look a lot better than it was. And it didn't look bad to start with. That's the thing about this. It wasn't like it looked ugly and I've now made it look better. It was looking in pretty good nick, but I've managed to come in and actually make some good changes to the line to make it feel more realistic, more characterful, more grown in, if that makes sense. So it doesn't just look like someone's carved away some hills and laid a railway. It looks like the railway has been there for a long time, and nature has slowly started to recapture the territory lost when they were building the railway line. Look at what I want it to be. So the story of the line is it's a preserved railway, but the infrastructure, some of the track might have been lifted for a brief period after the beaching cuts, but then the preservationists came in and actually relayed the track on the existing track bed. So things like trees and fences and bridges and all that kind of thing that were originally built as part of the original railway are now part of the heritage railway. And there isn't that much construction equipment needed to come in, therefore the trees are still quite close to the line. There are a lot of heritage lines now. The one I can think of is the Bell Railway, when they first opened the extension to East Grinstead. I wasn't there at the very beginning, but I think it was like 2 months after they opened the extension. I went there with my family. And it's very obvious the cut-off point between, is it Kingscote, I think was the previous terminus, and East Grinstead. You could see where they've carved through the old cutting that was filled in with landfill, where they've dug all that out again. And it sort of went from a really nice, quaint railway surrounded by trees, very nice, very peaceful. And as you get closer to East Grinstead, it sort of becomes, the green either side of the railway becomes brown, where the trees and the grass hasn't grown back yet. I haven't been there for a little while, actually. In fact, I think the day that you're watching this, I might well have revisited. Because I've got family that live down near there, and I'm supposed to be visiting them as part of some celebrations that I've been having recently, which I'll dwell on in other videos, I think. It's good news, though, so no need to worry about that. I'll have another look. If I do get the chance to go again, I'll have another look and see what it's like there these days. But there's a lot of railways that have that now, the heritage railways, where for various reasons the railway has to meet certain modern requirements, disability, accessibility, that kind of thing. So a lot of the platforms now aren't authentic. A lot of the infrastructure itself isn't that authentic, and it's not a bad thing. The fact that heritage lines are extending still. The Gloucestershire Warwickshire Railway is just extended to Broadway, and I've seen pictures of Broadway Station, and it actually has been rebuilt almost exactly how it was back in Great Western Railway days, which I think is awesome. There will be certain aspects of it that will have had to have been modernised for meeting certain legal requirements, but besides that, I think it's really good that the lines are still retaining their character, despite me moaning about not every line doing that. Some deliberately don't do that, but the Somerset Hills Railway, I will try and keep its authenticity as much as possible. There will be certain aspects of the line that will be built to modern standards, particularly not at the Somerset Hills end of the line, but at the opposite end of the line. Instead of having semaphore signals, it's a very good chance that we will actually just have traffic light signals instead. traffic light signals, I don't think that's the right word. Color aspect signals is what is it's what they're technically known as. Just so that, I mean, for operational interest as well, we'll have semaphore and colored aspect signal. We'll have a bit of both, you know. But yeah, the line is taking shape. Once again, we've only gone as far as Wenwick Colliery. We will, in the next video, hopefully extend to Wenwick Town. But what you're going to see in a second is a radical change in the landscape on the approach to the colliery from both sides, east and west. East and west? I think it's east and west. I always thought the line ran from north to south, and I think even in the last episode I talked about it running from north to south. But then when I was trying to edit the scenario for this, I went into the map mode, and actually it's a weird. The triangular junction just outside Lambton is really weird, because I think actually no, I think it is north to south. Thinking about it again, it must be. But I think the other spur line. So you've got 3 spurs coming off the triangle. You've got the east line, which goes to Lambton Bay itself, and then it goes west out towards the rest of the line, which I won't talk about right now because it's a long way off in the future before we get to that stage. And then I think it is south that goes towards Wenwick Colliery. So this is a north to south line at this stage. I get confused. You can see here I'm trying to decide what to build in this gap between the 2 lines. I do settle in the end for a bridge, and originally, you know, I was going to have a brick viaduct go across the top, but I do remember saying last week, or not last week, last time, I can't remember, this series alternates with the scenarios, that I wanted a bridge pillar to sit in the middle of the 2 tracks to actually make it look like the tracks separate for a reason. So it took me a few attempts to find a bridge pier that I liked, but eventually I settled on, I believe it was this one. All the others, they looked okay, but they didn't really fit the authentic feel that I was going for. So I chose this pillar, and then I chose the bridge deck that matched it. And the bridge, which you'll see in a second, it turned out really nicely. I'm a big fan of it. I think it looks really, really good. So yeah, like I said, the landscape is going to change around Wenwick very, very shortly, and it's kind of inspired by real-life mainline railways in the UK. I've been doing some research, not for this series, in fact, it's for another series that I've got planned on the channel, but it ties in nicely with this series. One of the articles I was reading was about the Lickey Incline. If those of you who don't know what that is, there's a section of track between 2 stations. One's called Bromsgrove, and I'm trying to remember what the other one's called. It's on the cross-country route. I think it's south of Birmingham or just north of Birmingham. Like I say, it's on the cross-country route, so it's a fairly well-used stretch of track. It's a 2-mile section. It is the longest. Sorry, it's the steepest continuous gradient in the UK. It's a 1 in 37 gradient. So 1 foot for every 37 foot. Sorry, 1 foot. I have a bad time explaining. It's late at night as well when I'm recording this, which is why my voice sounds a bit hushed too. It's 1 foot up or down for every 37 feet travelled, which is, it sounds not that bad, but when you see it, it's incredibly steep. And for railways in particular, it's very, very steep. I think it's actually, not only is it the steepest continuous gradient in the UK, I think it is actually one of the steepest gradients without using driving aids, whatever the term is, like rack and pinion, extra adhesion, that kind of thing. And even now, back in the steam days, freight trains and some passenger trains required banking engines to help get over the incline. Even now, you know, modern times, 2018, some freight trains do still require assistance getting up the gradient. That's how steep it is. That's how challenging it is. So I kind of wanted to replicate that, not so much in terms of the gradient on the line, but the fact that there are huge hills, particularly in the north of England. The Pennines is I suppose it's a mountain range or a hill range. I'd say they're hills more than mountain. I don't think we really have any mountains in England. We certainly do in Scotland and Wales. Snowdon and Ben Nevis, for example, they're both mountains. I suppose some of the peaks in the Lake District, and in fact the Peak District, might be classed as mountains. I've personally not visited many mountains in my life. Snaefell on the Isle of Man, I've been there. I've actually been to the top of it as well. It was a very foggy day, so I didn't get to see much. But yeah, I wanted to recreate the idea of steep gradients either side of the line, so embankments, cuttings, that kind of thing. And also, given the fact that it's a colliery, you know, it's supposed to be built in hills. Though not every colliery in the world is built in a hill, but majority are. There's a really, really good museum not far from Newcastle upon Tyne called Beamish. And if you live up in that part of the country and you've never been there before, I highly recommend it. They've got loads of cool exhibits there. They have an authentic Victorian, I think it is, town. Actually, no, it's not Victorian. Oh, it might be Victorian. It's somewhere between Victorian and I'd say the 1940s is the time period in which this I say town. I think it's a village. I think it's actually called Village. That's it. That's what they call it, Beamish Village. They have a replica tramway that runs around using real trams, but it runs around the entire museum complex. Again, I do apologise for tripping over my words and long hesitations between sentences. I'm desperately trying to think what to say. It's nearly 2:30 in the morning when I'm recording this, because I thought I had already done the time-lapse for this and it turned out I hadn't. But I'm actually doing this a couple of days before the video is supposed to air, just so that I can get all my videos for the week uploaded. It's kind of, you know, I'm trying to be productive. It's not exactly working so far. Beamish also has a working steam railway. It's not particularly long. It's only got one station to my knowledge, at least it had when I went there. It's mostly industrial steam locomotives that they have running, with a couple of like four-wheeled carriages. But the bit that I wanted to talk about is the coal mine that they have there, which is in part linked to the steam railway. It also has a narrow gauge little railway network around there as well. And that's kind of my inspiration for Wenwick Colliery, although it's set in a different part of the country, of course. This is set in what was the western region of British Rail, or Great Western Railway, whichever you want to call it. So there are aspects that have been borrowed from other parts of the country, but ultimately it's a Great Western themed heritage railway. Again, themed really isn't the right word. You know what I mean? It's a Great Western... trying to think of the word, infused railway, I suppose. So, you know, even in 2018, it's very obvious where the roots of this line originated from. So you can see here I've made all the hills around the colliery much taller. I've also shaped them a little bit better as well, so they're not just flat peaked. They've actually got some shape and character to them, and that's, I'm going to use that word a lot in this series as well, character. Everything about this railway has to have that character of a bygone era. You know, the days of steam are no more, sadly. There are people who work constantly around the clock to keep the steam era alive in heritage railways, and I do feel at times that's something that's not celebrated enough, in my opinion. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's certainly a lot of people that campaign to keep these lines running. The fact that they're all volunteer run as well, there are only a few heritage railways in the UK that have paid staff. Most of the time it is entirely run by volunteers, so that's also something that should be applauded. But yeah, character, it's crucial. Each station on the railway is going to be set in a different time period, and in some cases in a different part of the country as well. And that's something that's also been inspired by heritage railways that I've visited. So the West Somerset Railway is my best example of that. You have stations like Minehead, Bishop's Lydiard, which are very obviously Great Western Railways. But then you go to Washford, which is roughly halfway along the line, and it's Southern Railway. It's decorated in the Southern Railway type. It's got Southern Railway style platform sign. In fact, I think the museum for the original Somerset and Dorset Joint Railway is there as well, which was part of the southern region, if I recall correctly. And that's kind of what this station's going to be. Sorry, that's what this line's going to be with regards to its stations. Each station is going to have its own story to tell, essentially. So, you know, Lambton Bay, it's a coastal town. It's going to be based around the idea of coastal town. I'm not 100%. Currently, it looks like a GWR station, but I might change it in the future. Wenwick Colliery is very much going to be set up in the northeast of England, so it's going to be made to look like the NER, Northeast Railway. Wenwick Town is going to be probably based on not London suburban, but more suburban. It's probably going to be the most suburban station on the line so far. There will be another one, but again, I won't go into too much detail on that at this moment in time. Obviously, considering this is going to be set in the Great Western part of the country, each station, as well as being its own identity, having its own identity in certain cases set in different parts of the country, there will still be Great Western elements carried over, because the changing the station to look like different parts of the country is very much a preservation era decision. So the original Great Western elements will be kept as well. So Wenwick, for example, the station building looks very Great Western, mainly because it is Great Western. Whereas, you know, Lambton, all the station buildings there, very much Great Western, built in the stone and brick style. And yeah, I'm kind of running out of things to talk about. I really wish I'd recorded this during the day. What I suppose I could talk about is scenarios for this route. There's going to be a few, and I suppose one of the key things to talk about is how this route is going to be run. So I touched on this briefly last time out, but I'm going to say it again this time. It's a heritage railway, so it's going to run with heritage railway in mind. So in other words, it's going to have more trains running than it would have were it just a normal main line. And I think I said last time there'll be a train every 10 to 15 minutes. And I should stress again, that's on the core of the route. So in and out of Lambton, probably every 10 to 15 minutes there. And between Mattock, which is going to be a junction station, which we'll be building hopefully in the next couple of months, and Shoreside Vale, which is the next station on after Lambton. There'll be a train every 10 to 15 minutes of various types, whether it's a DMU or an auto coach with a little pannier tank or something like that, or whether it's a full-on, you know, 9, maybe not 9, but somewhere between 6 and 8 carriages with a 9F or a King or something like that hauling it. A lot of the sort of the longer trains will run the full length of the route. Things like the DMU and the auto coach will be limited to just the core section, mainly so that it's not holding up the other timetable trains. Now, the way the scenarios are going to work is I have placed some portals currently underneath that bridge you saw me build a little bit earlier on, and they're the Lambton South portals. There will be some on this spur of the triangle that you can see me hovering over here. I'm not actually sure what I'm doing here. Oh, I think I'm googling how to place markers again, because it's been so long since I did simple stuff like this that I'd completely forgotten how to do it. There will be portals just off to the right hand side of the screen there once the line is extended, and that's mainly so that when you're running scenarios, you know, you pass a train and then once you're around the corner and out of sight, that train will disappear into a portal and, you know, despawn from the world. And then somewhere else, as you travel along a little bit further, or maybe as you're doing the return journey, you see that train on its return journey, but it will be a different train from a different part of the line. Yeah, it's too much to explain right now. Like I say, I'm tired and I'm not really thinking straight. But I'm finding scenarios really difficult to make, which is what basically the rest of this video is, essentially, is me trying to create a scenario whereby you start off in the sheds, you turn your engine around on the triangle, which you can see here, and then you couple up to the carriages that are sitting in platform 3 of Lambton Bay, You do a run down to Wenwick Colliery, you run around your train, and you run back. And there are 2 other passenger trains also operating on that stretch of line. You pass one of them, which is a pannier tank hauling, I think it's 5 carriages, on the way down to Wenwick. That train is back in Lambton platform 1 when you return, and then you pass a DMU as you arrive at at Wenwick. DMU passes in the other platform, you run around your train, and then as you're going back up towards Lambton, the DMU passes you again on its return journey. That's what the scenario was supposed to be, but for some reason the engine, the orders for the locomotive to turn on the triangle was causing a pathing issue. I'm not quite sure what's causing that, because I checked the signalling and it seemed to be okay, and then I checked the directionality, if that's even a word, of the track, and that was all set up fine. And I checked that the marker posts weren't impeding on buffers or anything like that, and they didn't seem to be, so I'm not 100% sure why it wouldn't let me turn the loco on the triangle. So then I tried turning the loco on it on the spot where it was, and then just having you couple up to the train and pull the carriages down to Wenwick. But for some reason trains keep getting in each other's way, and I mean, I had an argument with someone on my Train Sim World stream last week, which you'll be able to see next week when I upload the stream. And the argument was about how good really is Train Simulator, both Train Simulator and Train Sim World. And I won't dwell too much on the argument, because it was a pointless argument really. The guy crossed several lines, which is why I took exception to it, but you know, I probably should have just kept quiet. But one of the points that we were discussing, all of us in the chat, was or something I brought up, was how much of an improvement Train Sim World's AI is over Train Simulator. The dispatcher, I think it's known as, so basically the AI that does the pathing for trains and scenarios. In Train Simulator, it's not the best. It was great for the time, but you know, as time has progressed, it's become more and more obvious that the AI is not the smartest. So it's one thing that I do like about Train Sim World, is the AI is very, very sharp, very intelligent. Just little details for me as well, like in the CSX map, if you place some wagons in a particular location for an AI train to couple up to, the AI can actually detect where those wagons are, whereas on Train Simulator, this game, it can't. So you can't have an AI locomotive couple up to a train that you've positioned in the scenario, because it can't determine where the consist is within the marker that it's supposed to couple up to, and it ends up crashing into it, which isn't very good. You don't want that. So the scenario editing for this route, for me in particular, is quite frustrating, because really I wanted it to be the same 4 or 5 trains, and every time the AI gets to the end of the line, the engine will run around, couple up to the other end of the train, and do a return journey. It's one of the reasons why I liked playing Trains with a Z, because that game allowed you to do that. Like most series that are running on my channel at the moment, this particular series was born on a different game and has evolved into this current version. So the original Somerset Hills Railway was built on trains, and it worked really well in that I could just select a train, give it its orders, put it on repeat, and then just sit and watch it go. And then I could have several different trains, all with different orders, and watch the railway work, essentially. Which you can kind of do that. I mean, you can do that in Train Sim World. You can just get on board a train and watch it run itself. You know, the AI will drive the train, which is one of the things that you can see me do in the stream next week. But I guess it's frustrating that you can't do that in Train Simulator. It's not ruined the game for me. I still think it's a very good game. It's fun to play. Even during this scenario creating stress, it was still fun, because I like these kinds of challenges. I like being presented with something that feels unfixable, but as you slowly work through it, you can slowly tick off the boxes, and eventually you end up with something. It might not be working how you originally envisaged it, but the main thing is it works, and that's what's important. But the reason I'm talking about this now is Josh, good friend of mine. He comes up a lot in the Cities in Motion videos, and if you're a big fan of the Doomsday Host, you'll know who Josh is. He makes scenarios. He has his own channel. I might link it in the description in this video actually, because he is making time-lapse videos on creating scenarios. So I've actually been watching those videos to get some advice on how to create scenarios. So he's already offered his help for me to get the scenarios for the Somerset Hills Railway created. But if there's anyone out there watching this who is not only good at creating scenarios, but is also good at creating routes, in particular, I need help with the signalling of the line to make sure that it is actually being signaled properly, because if you can't signal the route properly, then you definitely can't set up the scenarios, because the AI won't be able to navigate the line as intended, which I think is the problem with the triangle. I think the problem is not so much with the direction of the line, because the sections where it's supposed to be bidirectional, they are bidirectional. The sections where they're supposed to be unidirectional, they are unidirectional. So I think it has to be a signaling problem as to why it can't pathfind. But like I said, if there's anyone out there, this is me checking the directionality of the line. As you can see, you know, blue is bidirectional. If there's anyone out there who knows this stuff better than I do, which is pretty much everyone who plays the game, and you'd like to offer your help, it would be very, very much appreciated. But that's it for me talking. I think I'm just going to let the music take over and run till the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching. Like I said, if there's anyone out there who can offer their assistance, please do get in touch. Even if it's just to call me an idiot and tell me I'm doing it wrong. As long as you have something constructive to say after that as well, then go for it. Because I know I'm an idiot, I know I'm doing it wrong, but the problem is I don't know how to fix it. So that's where I appeal to you guys. You're going to see me make loads more mistakes in this video, I guarantee it. Because at this point I'm just testing everything, making little tweaks and seeing if that helps. And in most cases it didn't. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and of course if you're enjoying the series, drop some comments down below with all kinds of things to do with this series or railways in general. I don't mind. Let's get a chat going. I always like chats in the comment section. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for continued support. Don't forget to check out my Twitch channel next week. Let me think. Next week? No, next week's scenarios. Week after next, to see me work on the next stage. Or if you're watching this on YouTube on Wednesday night, you might even be able to catch the end of my Somerset Hills stream on Wednesday or today, depending on when you're watching this. So do follow the link in the description. I think there's a link to my Twitch channel. If there isn't, let me know and I'll add one. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Enjoy the music, enjoy the video, and until next time, I will see you soon.